The rain poured hard against the windows of Maple Street Café, the kind of place that felt like a safe harbor from the storms of life. The golden glow of lamps reflected against the glass, and the smell of roasted coffee beans drifted into the street, pulling in weary souls looking for warmth. But lately, the café wasn't the cheerful refuge it had once been. Conversations were quieter now, laughter was rare, and the air carried a heaviness everyone felt but nobody dared to name. The reason had a name, though: Victor Harrington. A man who entered like thunder and left destruction in his wake. He was wealthy, filthy rich. Everyone knew his name from newspapers and business magazines. They called him a self-made millionaire, though rumors swirled that he'd crushed people on his way to the top. He had everything: sleek cars, designer suits, a penthouse overlooking the city. Yet, despite all that, Victor was bitter, cruel. He treated strangers like servants and waiters like dirt beneath his polished shoes. Every afternoon, like clockwork, he stormed into the café. The bell above the door would chime, and suddenly the room would fall into silence. Customers avoided his gaze, baristas stiffened, and even Mr. Grant, the gray-haired owner, looked 10 years older whenever Victor appeared. The saddest part: nobody stood up to him. Nobody, until the day a new waitress walked in. Before we dive deeper into this powerful story, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to Kindness Wins, where we share stories that prove compassion is always stronger than cruelty. Her name was Emily Carter, and she wasn't used to quiet rooms. Back home, in the small town she'd left behind, she grew up in a house where laughter tried to fight its way through hardship. Her father had left when she was 12, leaving her mother with 2 children and a mountain of debt. Emily had grown up watching her mother juggle 3 jobs: cleaning houses during the day, waiting tables at night, and stitching clothes at dawn. There were days when the electricity was cut off, nights when dinner was just a piece of bread with tea, mornings when she pretended she wasn't hungry so her younger brother could eat. But through it all, her mother had one mantra: kindness is free, Emily. It's the one thing no one can take away from you. Her mother's words etched themselves into her heart. So when Emily came to the city, clutching a battered suitcase and her mother's faded photograph, she carried those words like armor. She dreamed of studying one day, of building a better life, not just for herself, but for her mother and brother. When she saw the little wooden sign outside Maple Street Café, "Help Wanted," she stepped inside with hope shining in her tired eyes. Mr. Grant, the café owner, had seen dozens of waitresses come and go. He studied Emily carefully when she asked for a job. "It's not easy here, child," he said, polishing his glasses. "Customers can be difficult." Emily smiled softly. "Difficult people are often the ones who need kindness the most." Mr. Grant had chuckled, though his eyes looked heavy. "You'll see soon enough." He gave her the job, though part of him worried she wouldn't last a week. On her 3rd day of work, the storm arrived. The bell above the door chimed, and in walked Victor Harrington. His presence swallowed the room. He wore a tailored gray suit. His watch gleamed under the lights, and the smell of expensive cologne preceded him. He tossed his umbrella on the floor without looking back, snapping his fingers for service as though the staff were his servants. Emily bent down to pick up the umbrella and held it out to him. "Sir, you dropped this." Victor turned, his eyes narrowing. "New, aren't you?" His smirk was cruel. "Let's hope you're not as slow as the others." The room went silent. Mr. Grant, standing behind the counter, tensed. He wanted to warn Emily to stay quiet, to just let it pass. Everyone had learned to endure Victor's tantrums like they endured storms, pray they'd blow over quickly. But Emily only smiled politely. "I'll do my best, sir. What can I get for you today?" Victor leaned back in his chair, tapping his gold ring against the table. "A latte, extra hot." Scalding. Last time it was lukewarm. Pathetic. Emily nodded calmly. "1 extra hot lat, right away." When she brought it to him, steam curled from the cup. Victor took a sip, then slammed it down. Coffee splashed across the table. "Too hot! Are you trying to burn me?" His voice boomed through the café. A child in the corner flinched, his mother pulling him close. Emily's hands remained steady. "I made it just as you asked, sir. Extra hot, but I can prepare another one if you'd like it cooler." Victor leaned forward, sneering. "Do you know who I am?" The café froze. Everyone knew this line. It was his weapon, his declaration of power. Emily's gaze didn't waver. "No, sir. Should I?" A stunned silence followed. Victor blinked, momentarily caught off guard. "You'll learn soon enough," he muttered, tossing a crumpled bill on the table before striding out. Emily exhaled, her heart racing. But when she looked around, she saw something remarkable. Every customer's eyes were on her, not with pity but with admiration. For the first time, someone had spoken to the storm without fear. Victor returned the next day, and the day after that. Each time he tested her. He sent his sandwich back 3 times, claiming it wasn't crafted with care. He made jokes about the old man who sat reading his newspaper, calling him ancient furniture. He mocked a cleaner, saying she'd never rise above scrubbing floors, and each time Emily refused to bend. She didn't fight fire with fire. She fought with dignity. Her words were calm, her tone steady, her kindness unshaken, and little by little the cafe began to change. Mia, the young barista, started smiling again, cracking jokes while she brewed cappuccinos. The mother with the little boy stayed longer, no longer rushing out when Victor entered. The old man by the window raised his head higher when Victor tried to mock him. It was as if Emily's courage was contagious. She had given everyone permission to believe they didn't have to live in fear of one man's cruelty. But Victor noticed too, and he hated it. One rainy afternoon, his anger boiled over. The newspapers had been filled with headlines about his company laying off hundreds of workers. Protesters had gathered outside his office, shouting his name with venom. He came into the cafe furious, his pride battered, his ego bleeding. He slammed his briefcase onto the table. "Get me a black coffee. Strong, no sugar, and hurry." Emily brought it to him. "Here you go, sir." He took one sip and spat it back into the cup. "Disgusting! Do you call this coffee?" "I should buy this whole dump and bulldoze it into the ground." The cafe went silent again. Everyone's eyes turned to Emily. Would she back down this time? But Emily's gaze was steady. She leaned closer, her voice clear and strong. "You could, sir. You could buy this place 100 times over. But money doesn't buy respect. And in this room, respect is something you don't have." The words cracked like thunder. Victor's face turned crimson. He opened his mouth, but no words came. Emily didn't stop. Her voice grew firmer, rising above the patter of rain on the windows. "You walk in here every day trying to prove your power by tearing others down. But real power isn't in how much money you make. It's in how you treat people. And maybe if you tried kindness, you wouldn't have to remind everyone who you are." The cafe erupted, not in fear, but in applause. Soft at first, then louder, until every corner of the room rang with clapping. Mia clapped with tears in her eyes. The old man set down his newspaper and clapped proudly. Even Mr. Grant, who had feared this moment for years, clapped with trembling hands and a heart swelling with pride. Victor sat frozen, humiliated. For the first time in his life, his wealth couldn't shield him. His arrogance had met its match, not in another millionaire, but in a young waitress with unshakable dignity. He grabbed his briefcase and stormed out, the bell above the door chiming behind him like a final note of defeat. Victor never returned to Maple Street Café, but the cafe itself transformed. Laughter returned. Conversations flowed easily again. The mother and child became regulars. The old man brought his chess set to play with strangers, and Mr. Grant's eyes twinkled like they hadn't in years. And at the heart of it all was Emily. She didn't see herself as a hero. She still poured coffee with the same quiet smile, still wiped tables with care, still slipped extra sugar packets into the child's hot chocolate. But to the people of the cafe, she was more than a waitress. She was a reminder. A reminder that sometimes the greatest power doesn't come from wealth or fear. It comes from courage, kindness, and the refusal to bow to cruelty. If this story inspired you, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to Kindness Wins. Your support helps us share more stories that heal hearts and remind the world that compassion is stronger than arrogance. Because in the end, Victor's money couldn't silence Emily's truth. And that truth was simple, but unforgettable. Kindness isn't weakness. It's the greatest strength of all.